Hey there, friends. I just finished reading this book, Tomstown, Kansas City and the Pendergast Legend by William M. Reddig. It's pretty good. I think it took about a week and a half or so, give or take. J.B. Lippincott Company, Philadelphia, New York. So this edition is from 1947. Second impression, so I assume that means the second printing. To JPG, who took me to the old town. Essentially, it's about the kind of the origins of a lot of politicians and stuff in Kansas City, primarily Tom Pendergast and a bunch of kind of like business leaders, like I said, political guys in the late 1800s, early 1900s. It's definitely pretty interesting, kind of seeing how things are the same, things don't change, it's the same stuff 100 years later. A lot of history of Kansas City from the different sides, north side, south side, all the different areas, how things got their names. You always kind of forget, like, no matter what city or town you're from, how, here in the Kansas City area, you have like Shoto Traffic Way, you have Swope Park, you have the Nelson Atkins Museum. You always kind of forget that these are named after people. Swope was a guy, Nelson was a guy, Shoto was a guy. So I first heard of Tom Pendergast in a different book, which I just happen to have sitting right here. This one's called The Mafia and the Machine, the story of the Kansas City mob. This one was more mob-based. This is Frank R. Hady, Barricade Books, 2007. So this one's more about the political, not the political, but the connections, the mob connections between New York, Kansas City, Chicago, and then, Las Vegas. So there's Alderman Jim Pendergast. That was the older brother of Tom Pendergast. Tom Pendergast there. So I first heard about them reading this book, I think back in 2022 or 2023. I have this weird habit of when I get into reading, I like to go to a coffee shop and read for like at least an hour and a half or 2 hours. But I always do so. I'll start with like one book, get like halfway into it, and then I'll pick up a second book. I'll take both of them with me. I'll read like, a big section, a big chunk, chapter or two out of one. Then I'll set it to the side, start reading a chapter or a big chunk of the other one. And sometimes we'll build up to I'll have three. I never do more than three, but usually I'll carry 3 books and read 3 different books, at the same time. That way, because I want to read for an hour and a half. I don't want to get bored of what I'm reading, so I kind of switch it up. I've been reading a lot of nonfiction. I found this one at Half Price Books. I forget exactly which one, not that it matters. But what's funny is they had this edition on the shelf in kind of like a Kansas City local area of books all about the Kansas City. And they had like a 1980s and 1990s paperback version of the same thing. And the paperback one was like $19, and this hardcover one from 1947 was only like $14 or something like that. Definitely a lot cooler to have, so I'm glad to have this. Really enjoyed it. Like I said, it's about the political machine and the ways Pendergast and a bunch of other guys in the early 1900s had like control over different aspects of the city government, and how Pendergast kind of helped Harry S. Truman get elected and become president and all that. But definitely an interesting read. Like I said, it's not very mobster-y, although there's slight connections to the mobster like Johnny Lazia and some other goings-ons. But it's some very good, interesting stories in that book, as well as with this one, The Mafia and the Machine. Obviously, I read this one a couple years ago. I don't remember it as much since it's been a couple years. The River Key saga. But, you lived in Kansas City my entire life, technically since '84, in Kansas all my life. You just hear all these different areas and all these names and all these places, and you don't really think about the history that they have. So, definitely an interesting read if you're into reading about things that happened over 100 plus years ago in Kansas City. Check out Tomstown. I was reading this, and people see me reading it or whatever, or they ask tell them I'm reading this book called Tomstown, and they'll know Tomstown as a bar/distillery that's down in the Crossroads area. Crossroads, you have like kind of downtown, Crossroads, and Midtown Plaza. So there's a place called Tomstown Distillery, which I used to drive by when I worked at a theater down there. But it's because the Tomstown Distillery is on Main Street in the same area where Tom Pendergast had his business front. I think it's like the head of the Democratic Club, 1908 Main Street, and Tomstown Distillery is nearby. But so it's like I said, Tomstown, people know it as the distillery here in Kansas City in 2025, but don't know where it comes from. But definitely an interesting book. See ya.